The cowboy had been searching for a nanny for his baby for 6 months, Apache woman. Now I am here. John Miller had been living on the edge of the New Mexico plains for nearly 10 years. He was a man shaped by the land he worked on, a wide expanse of rolling hills, dry grass, and dusty paths where cattle roamed freely. His ranch was his life, and it had always been enough for him. But everything changed 6 months ago when his wife, Emily, passed away unexpectedly during childbirth. John had faced grief before, but losing the woman he loved most left a hole in his life that the vast, empty plains seemed to echo every day. Now, he had only one reason to keep going: his daughter, Lily. She was barely a year old, a small bundle of curiosity and innocence, with eyes that mirrored her mother's. Every morning when he lifted her from her crib and held her close, he felt a mix of love and responsibility that weighed heavier than any load of hay he had ever carried. But caring for a baby while running a ranch alone was nothing short of exhausting. For 6 months, John had been searching for someone who could help. At first, he thought it would be easy. He had asked neighbors, friends, and even posted notices in the nearest town. Wanted, experienced nanny for infant on ranch, the ad read. He had hoped someone kind, patient, and reliable would answer. But time and again, people either did not show up or gave up within a few days. Some had said the work was too hard. Others had left because they did not like living so far from town. Each failed attempt made John more frustrated and more lonely. The first nanny had been a young woman named Clara. She came with letters of recommendation and promised to take care of Lily like her own child. At first, she seemed perfect. She had a gentle voice and a soft touch that made Lily giggle. But after 2 weeks, Clara left without much explanation. She said she was not used to living in such isolation and missed the city. John had tried to hide his disappointment from Lily, but he felt it deep in his chest. Next came an older woman, Martha, who seemed experienced and practical. She knew how to cook, clean, and handle babies, but she could not ride horses or help with the ranch chores. Soon, John realized that even if Lily were cared for, he would still be alone with the work outside, and Martha did not have the stamina for it. She left after a month, frustrated with the early mornings and long days in the sun. John tried many others, women who had good intentions but could not adjust to the rough life on the plains. Some were scared of the animals. Others were not strong enough to carry firewood or bend over to tend to the fields. He even asked a few men to help, but most had jobs in town and could not commit to living on the ranch. 6 months passed, and the house still felt empty, except for the sounds of a crying baby and the wind moving through the dry grass outside. Every evening, John would sit in the porch chair, holding Lily close to his chest. She would fall asleep on his shoulder, her tiny hand curling around his finger. He looked at her soft face, her small nose, and the little tuft of hair on her head, and felt a wave of love so strong it hurt. He wanted to give her everything: care, warmth, and happiness, but he could not do it all alone. The thought of Lily growing up without a strong female presence in her life worried him endlessly. He thought about Emily constantly. Her laughter, her bright eyes, and the way she could calm Lily with just a look. John missed her guidance, her gentle touch, and the quiet way she managed the house and the ranch together with him. He felt the gap left by her absence everywhere, in the kitchen, in the nursery, and especially in the evenings when the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in soft oranges and purples. Despite the hardship, John did not give up. He would ride to town every few days, post new ads, and speak with anyone who might help. He even went to the local church and asked the pastor if he knew of anyone looking for work. Everyone was kind and supportive, but the reality remained. It was hard to find someone who could handle both a baby and the physical demands of ranch life. At night, when the wind blew across the plains and the stars filled the sky, John would sit by the window and listen to the quiet rustling of the grass. He thought about the months he had spent searching and the many disappointments he had faced. Still, he held on to hope. Somewhere out there, someone was strong, patient, and kind enough to help him care for Lily. He just had to find her. John also learned a lot about himself during these months. He discovered that he could change diapers, cook simple meals, and soothe a crying baby in the middle of the night. He became familiar with every coo, gurgle, and whimper of Lily's little voice. He even sang lullabies he barely remembered from his own childhood, and to his surprise, Lily would fall asleep to them. Still, the work was tiring, and he often fell asleep in his chair while holding her, exhausted but grateful for the small moments of peace. The ranch, too, demanded attention. The cattle had to be fed, fences mended, and fields tended. John worked from dawn until dusk, often skipping meals, just to make sure everything ran smoothly. On some days, he felt the weight of the responsibility pressing down on him like the sun on the dry plains. He longed for someone who could share this burden, someone who could help him balance ranch work and childcare. Neighbors were sympathetic but busy with their own lives. Some offered advice, others offered temporary help, but John needed someone permanent, someone he could trust fully with his daughter. He could not leave Lily with anyone who would abandon her after a few weeks. That fear made him cautious, sometimes too cautious, but he knew it was necessary. During this time, John formed a small routine. He would wake early, feed Lily, tend to the animals, and try to repair fences or check on the crops. In the afternoons, he would rock Lily in the porch chair while she napped, reading her simple storybooks and telling her about the ranch. He tried to make her life as normal and happy as possible, despite the absence of her mother. John also took comfort in small signs of life and hope. A rare hawk soaring across the sky, a new calf born on the ranch, or Lily's first steps were little moments that reminded him why he kept going. He found strength in these small joys and promised himself that he would never stop trying to make her world safe and full of love. Still, as the months passed, he grew tired. The loneliness crept in during the long nights when only the wind and the distant howl of coyotes kept him company. He missed having someone to talk to, someone to share the burden of parenthood, and someone to offer comfort when things got too hard. His heart ached for a helping hand, and more than anything, he wished for someone who could love Lily as much as he did. And so the search continued. John knew he could not give up. The plains were vast and life was hard, but he believed that the right person was out there. He just needed patience and the faith that sometimes life had a way of sending help when it was needed most. Little did John know, the answer to his prayers was closer than he imagined. A presence that would change his life and Lily's life forever was about to arrive on the dusty path leading to the ranch. Someone strong, caring, and capable. Someone who would bring warmth, guidance, and hope back into their home. The next morning, the sun rose slowly over the plains, casting golden light across the dry grass and the distant mountains. John was already busy with the day's chores. Lily sat in her small wooden chair, chewing on a soft cloth, while John filled the water troughs and checked the fences. The wind moved softly, carrying the smell of fresh hay and the faint scent of wildflowers. It was another ordinary day, or so John thought. As he was inspecting a fence near the edge of the property, he noticed a figure in the distance. At first he thought it was a traveler passing by, but the figure was moving steadily along the dusty path toward the ranch, mounted on a small, strong horse. John shaded his eyes and squinted, trying to see more clearly. The rider was a woman, tall and calm, with long dark hair tied neatly behind her. She seemed confident, as if she had been traveling this path many times before. John's first thought was caution. He had learned over the years that strangers could bring trouble, especially in a place as isolated as this. Yet there was something about the way she moved, graceful, steady, purposeful, that made him pause. He called out from the fence, "Hey, who's out there?" Her eyes were steady and her voice carried easily across the distance. "My name is Nate," she said. "I'm here to help. I can help you with the baby and the ranch. I can do both. It's not an easy life here, and the baby, well, she needs constant care. Can you handle nights when she cries, long days with the animals, the sun, the wind, the cold?" I can manage it." She reached out her tiny hand and Nate gently lifted her into her arms. Lily did not cry. She looked comfortable, as if she recognized the kindness in this woman immediately. John could hardly believe it. 6 months of searching, and here was someone who seemed to connect with his daughter in an instant. "All right," John said, trying to keep his voice steady. "You can come in. Let's see how it goes. But I warn you, if you can't handle it, this isn't the place for you." John showed her the nursery, explaining Lily's routines, feeding times, nap times, and the little tricks Emily had taught him. Nate listened carefully, asking questions when necessary, and John noticed that she remembered every detail without making it seem like work. For the first week, John watched her closely. He observed how she prepared Lily's bottles, changed diapers, and played with her. He also noticed how she handled the animals, feeding the chickens, checking the cows, and repairing broken fences without complaint. Unlike previous caretakers, Nate did not seem tired or frustrated. She moved through the house and the ranch with a calm efficiency that impressed John. One evening, after a long day of chores, John sat on the porch chair, Lily asleep in her crib. He poured himself a cup of coffee and watched Nate finish up in the barn. She was singing softly to herself, a gentle melody that blended with the sounds of the wind and the animals. John realized, for the first time in months, that he was not alone. The next few days passed in a rhythm that John had not experienced since Emily's death. Nate and Lily developed a quiet bond. Lily would crawl to Nate for comfort, giggle at her gentle tickles, and reach out for her hands. John could see that Nate had a natural way of understanding the baby's needs, predicting when she would cry and soothing her before she became upset. John, too, began to open up to her. He shared stories about Emily, about the ranch, and even about his own childhood. Nate listened with patience, never judging or interrupting. She told him a little about her own life, how she grew up on land not far from this ranch, how she helped raise her younger siblings, and how she had always loved caring for children. John found her stories simple yet captivating, filled with experiences that mirrored his own struggles and triumphs. One afternoon, while they were repairing a fence together, a sudden gust of wind swept across the plains, knocking tools to the ground and startling the animals. Nate remained calm. She called to the cows in a firm, gentle voice, guiding them back to safety, while John secured the fence posts. Watching her, John realized something important. He could trust her, not just with Lily, but with everything on the ranch. By the end of the week, John felt a shift in his heart. The fear and exhaustion that had weighed on him for months began to lift. He realized that for the first time since Emily's passing, he could imagine a life that was not filled only with struggle. Lily laughed more, ate better, and slept peacefully, all thanks to Nate's care. The community also began to notice the change. Neighbors who had visited before commented on how lively the house had become. The baby's laughter could be heard more often, and John no longer seemed tense or worried. He had help, true help, and it showed. One evening, after putting Lily to bed, John sat on the porch and watched Nate tend to the horses. He felt a wave of gratitude and relief. "I didn't think someone like you existed," he said quietly. Nate looked up and smiled. "Sometimes help comes when you least expect it," she replied. Her words were simple, but they carried a sense of certainty and warmth. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, John realized that life was beginning to change for the better. Nate's presence had brought a sense of hope and stability that he had not felt in months. He watched Lily sleep peacefully through the window, knowing that for the first time since her mother passed, she was truly safe and cared for. And while John did not know what the future held, he understood one thing clearly. Nate had arrived at the right time, and perhaps, just perhaps, she was meant to stay. Days turned into weeks, and John began to notice changes that he had almost given up hope of seeing. Life on the ranch was still hard. Sun scorched the earth during the day, and nights were often cold and lonely. But with Nate there, everything felt lighter. She moved through the house and fields with a quiet strength that John admired. She was patient with Lily, firm when needed, and gentle in ways that made the baby feel safe. Nate had her own routine now, which blended naturally with John's. Early in the mornings, she would check on Lily while John tended the animals. She prepared breakfast, washed the dishes, and swept the floors, always with care and attention to detail. She never complained, even when the days were long and filled with chores. John watched her quietly sometimes, marveling at how seamlessly she had become a part of their lives. Lily had begun to form a strong attachment to Nate. She would reach for her whenever she was upset, laugh when Nate made silly faces, and even mimic her movements when they played together. John had never seen Lily so happy and secure. He remembered how anxious she used to be, crying through long days while he worked on the ranch. Now, her laughter filled the house and even the open spaces outside. One afternoon, John returned from checking the cattle to find Nate sitting on the porch with Lily on her lap. She was singing softly, a gentle melody that floated through the warm air. Lily's small hands clutched at Nate's shirt, her eyes wide and bright with delight. John leaned against the doorframe, watching quietly, feeling an unfamiliar warmth in his chest. For months, he had been alone in his worries, and now, here was someone who seemed to understand not only his daughter but him as well. "You've done well," John said quietly, not wanting to disturb the peaceful moment. Nate smiled, her eyes meeting his. "She's easy to care for. She's happy, curious, just like her mother was." "You've done everything you could, John, and now we'll do it together." There was the time Nate stayed up all night when Lily was sick, gently rocking her and humming lullabies until the baby finally rested. There was the day they repaired a broken fence together during a sudden rainstorm, their hands muddy and muscles aching, yet neither complained. They learned each other's rhythms, how they preferred tasks done, and how to communicate without words when working with animals or tending the land. One morning, John awoke to find Nate already in the kitchen, preparing breakfast. Lily sat in her high chair, happily munching on porridge while Nate hummed a soft tune. John realized that life had begun to feel predictable again, but in a good way, steady, comforting, and filled with simple joys. "Good morning," John said, stretching his arms. "Good morning," Nate replied, smiling warmly. "She slept well last night." For months, he had worried about her sleep, her health, and her happiness. Now, he knew she was in capable hands. Over the next few weeks, John and Nate began to share more about themselves. John told her about his childhood on a smaller ranch nearby, about his love for Emily, and how he had dreamed of raising a family. Nate listened patiently, never interrupting, offering small words of encouragement and understanding. In turn, Nate shared stories of her own life. She spoke about growing up among her family, helping to care for her younger siblings, and learning the skills needed to live off the land. John learned that she had faced hardships too, yet she never spoke of them with bitterness. Instead, her stories carried lessons about patience, resilience, and kindness. John realized that Nate had more experience in life than many he had met, and it wasn't just her knowledge of the ranch or childcare. It was her spirit that impressed him most. One evening, after a long day of work, John and Nate sat on the porch with a cup of tea. Lily had fallen asleep in her crib, exhausted from a day filled with play and exploration. The sky was painted in soft hues of pink and orange, and the wind whispered across the fields. John felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in months. "Thank you," he said quietly, watching Nate polish a mug. "For what?" she asked, looking up. "For being here, for helping, for caring," John replied. Nate's eyes softened. "I wanted to help, John. I'm glad I can. And I care for Lily. She's a special child. She deserves love and safety." He had been searching for someone for months, and now he finally found a person who seemed to fit perfectly into their lives. Life on the ranch began to feel lighter with Nate's presence. John could focus on his work without constantly worrying about Lily. He no longer had to rush through chores or skip meals just to make sure the baby was safe. Nature's calm and steady nature balanced his own anxiety and stress, allowing him to enjoy the little things again: the laughter of Lily, the beauty of a sunset, or the simple satisfaction of a task completed. The bond between Nate and Lily grew stronger every day. Lily would giggle when Nate entered the room, reach for her hands when she wanted to play, and cling to her shoulder when she needed comfort. John felt a wave of gratitude every time he saw them together. For the first time since Emily's passing, he felt hope, not just for his daughter, but for himself as well. Neighbors began to notice the difference too. Visits became easier, conversations more relaxed, and the ranch seemed livelier. People commented on how happy Lily appeared and how John seemed less stressed. The change was quiet but noticeable. John realized that having someone like Nate not only helped him, but also improved the atmosphere of the entire ranch. One afternoon, while walking along the fence line, John paused to watch Nate tend to the horses. She moved with ease and confidence, her hands firm but gentle as she brushed the animals' coats. John felt a deep sense of admiration, not just for her skill, but for her patience, her warmth, and her ability to make life feel less heavy. "You're really good with them," John said softly. Nate smiled. "They trust me just like Lily does. Trust is everything." He had started looking forward to seeing Nate each morning, sharing small conversations and learning from her quiet wisdom. He found comfort in her presence, something he had not allowed himself to feel in months. It was a simple comfort, but it mattered deeply. A reminder that even in the toughest times, kindness and care could arrive unexpectedly. By the end of the month, John could hardly remember how he had managed before Nate came. The ranch ran smoother, Lily was happier and healthier, and John felt a sense of stability that had been missing for so long. He realized that Nate had not only become a caregiver and helper, she had become part of their small family, a presence that brought hope and life back into their home. That evening, as John watched the sunset, he saw Nate rocking Lily gently on the porch, humming a soft tune. He felt a deep sense of gratitude and relief. The search was finally over. For months, he had worried, feared, and hoped. Now he could see that life could be beautiful again. And while the future remained uncertain, John knew one thing clearly. With Nate by their side, he and Lily were no longer alone. They had someone who cared, someone strong, and someone kind. For the first time in a long time, John allowed himself to hope, not just for the present, but for the future, for a life filled with love, trust, and the simple joys of each day. Weeks passed, and life on the ranch began to settle into a gentle rhythm that John had not experienced in months. The mornings were filled with the soft sounds of birds and the low calls of the cattle. Lily would wake up laughing, reaching out for Nate, who would greet her with a warm smile and soft words. John, once overwhelmed with worry and exhaustion, now found himself able to focus on his work, knowing that Lily was safe and happy. The bond between the three of them deepened with each passing day. Nate was no longer just a helper. She had become part of their lives in a way that felt natural, as if she had always belonged. She guided Lily with patience, teaching her small skills and watching her explore the ranch with wonder. Lily was fascinated by the animals, the wide-open fields, and the sounds of nature, and Nate was always there to explain, comfort, or cheer her on. John often watched them from a distance, feeling a quiet sense of pride and relief. He remembered the months when he had been desperate, searching for someone trustworthy, and now he could finally see the results of patience and hope. He no longer had to worry about who would care for his daughter while he tended to the ranch. Nate had become a steadfast presence in their home. One afternoon, after finishing the morning chores, John found Nate in the barn, carefully cleaning and brushing the horses. Lily was nearby, crawling on the straw, reaching for the animals under Nate's watchful eye. John smiled quietly. He had always loved his animals, but watching someone else care for them with the same respect and attention was a new and comforting experience. "You're really amazing with them," John said, leaning against the barn door. Nate glanced up and smiled softly. "They trust me just like Lily does," she replied. "Trust is everything. You build it slowly, day by day." Not just between him and Nate, but between all three of them. He saw it in Lily's laughter, in the gentle way she reached for Nate's hand, and in the calm rhythm of their days. The evenings were especially peaceful. After the work of the day was done, John and Nate would sit on the porch while Lily played nearby. Sometimes Nate would tell stories of her childhood, of the land where she grew up, and the lessons she had learned from her family. John listened quietly, feeling a growing respect for her wisdom and calm presence. He shared his own stories too, of Emily, of his childhood on the ranch, and of his hopes for Lily. As the days went by, John noticed a subtle change in himself. He had begun to rely on Nate not just for help with the ranch or Lily, but for companionship and understanding. He found comfort in her presence, in the way she listened without judgment and offered guidance without being forceful. Life, which had seemed so heavy and lonely, was now filled with warmth and a quiet happiness. One morning, as John was checking the fences, he found Nate sitting with Lily under a large tree. Lily was laughing, holding a small bundle of wildflowers she had picked. Nate's voice was gentle as she encouraged her, showing her how to hold the flowers carefully. John stood silently for a moment, watching them, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. He realized that Nate had not only helped him with the practical matters of life, but had also brought joy and comfort back into their home. They worked together seamlessly. Nate would handle chores inside the house while John tended to the animals, and they would switch tasks without needing to speak much. The days were still long, the work still demanding, but with shared effort, everything felt lighter. John could finally rest in the evenings, knowing that both the ranch and his daughter were in capable hands. The weekends were especially meaningful. John and Nate would take Lily for short rides on horseback, teaching her to respect and enjoy the land around them. They explored the hills and fields, letting Lily's curiosity guide their paths. She would point at a bird or a flower, and Nate would explain gently, encouraging her to notice the small details of the world. John found these moments deeply satisfying. For months, he had feared Lily might miss out on a happy childhood, but now he could see her growing, learning, and enjoying life. Neighbors began to notice the change too. Visits were more frequent, conversations more relaxed, and the ranch seemed livelier. People commented on how happy Lily appeared and how John seemed less tense and more confident. The transformation was quiet but clear, a household filled with care, trust, and shared responsibility. One evening, as the sun set behind the distant hills, John, Nate, and Lily sat on the porch together. Lily was playing with a small wooden toy, Nate gently guiding her little hands, while John sipped his tea, watching them with a smile. The sky was painted in shades of pink and gold, and a soft breeze carried the scents of the land around them. John felt a sense of peace he had not known in months, a deep gratitude for the presence of Nate in their lives. "You've really made a difference," John said quietly. Nate smiled, brushing a strand of hair from Lily's face. "We all make a difference together," she said. "It takes time, patience, and care. But the results, they're worth it." Nate and John worked together on the ranch, cared for Lily, and shared small moments of laughter and conversation. Trust had been built, and with it, a sense of safety and stability that had been missing for so long. John no longer had to face life alone. Nate's presence was a constant comfort, a reminder that even in difficult times, kindness and care could arrive when they were most needed. John also noticed a subtle change in Lily. She was more confident, more curious, and happier than ever before. She explored the ranch with a sense of wonder, always under Nate's watchful eye. Her laughter filled the house, the barn, and the open fields, a sound that reminded John daily of the value of trust, patience, and shared care. One afternoon, John and Nate were repairing a section of fence together when Lily toddled over with a small bouquet of flowers she had picked. She handed them to Nate, her eyes bright with pride. Nate knelt down, accepting the flowers with a warm smile, and held them gently. John watched, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and relief. This simple moment of joy was the result of months of effort, patience, and hope, a hope that had finally been rewarded. As evening approached, the three of them returned to the porch, watching the sky change colors and listening to the soft sounds of the land around them. John felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Life was still hard, still demanding, but it was also filled with warmth, love, and shared effort. With Nate by his side, he knew they could face any challenge together. And in that quiet moment, John realized something important. Nate was more than just a helper. She had become a part of their family, a presence that brought life, joy, and stability to their home. She had earned their trust, care, and respect, and in doing so, she had changed their lives forever. Months had passed since Nate first arrived at the ranch, and life had begun to feel full and complete in ways John had never imagined possible. The hard work of the ranch continued, but the burden no longer rested solely on his shoulders. Every day, John could see the positive changes in his daughter, Lily, and in himself. There was laughter in the house, calm in the fields, and a sense of peace that had been missing for too long. Lily had grown stronger and more confident. She toddled around the house with curiosity and determination, exploring every corner under Nate's watchful and gentle eyes. Her laughter became a constant sound, filling the air with joy. She reached for Nate when she wanted comfort, giggled when she was amused, and began learning small words and actions from her new caregiver. Watching Lily grow, John felt a deep sense of relief and happiness. For months, he had feared that she would feel lonely or neglected. Now he could see clearly that she was loved, safe, and happy. Nate had become an inseparable part of their lives. She managed the household with care, guided Lily with patience, and helped John with the ranch work. She had a natural way of teaching without making it feel like a lesson, showing Lily how to respect the animals, enjoy nature, and take small responsibilities seriously. John noticed that Lily would watch Nate closely, copying her movements and gestures, learning from her example. One crisp morning, John woke to the smell of freshly baked bread. Nate had prepared breakfast while Lily played nearby, stacking wooden blocks and laughing at her own little creations. John poured himself a cup of coffee and joined them at the table. "You made breakfast again," John said with a smile. Nate shrugged lightly, smiling warmly. "I like seeing her happy in the mornings," she replied. "It sets the tone for the day." He could finally enjoy the little moments again, watching Lily laugh, feeling the warmth of the sun on his face, listening to the sounds of the land around them. The ranch had also improved under their combined efforts. Fences were strong, animals were healthy, and the fields were carefully tended. John no longer felt the constant stress that had plagued him in the past. With Nate's help, work felt manageable and even enjoyable at times. They had developed a rhythm together, understanding each other's strengths and working in harmony. Evenings on the ranch had become particularly special. After the work of the day was done, the three of them would sit on the porch, watching the sun dip behind the hills and listening to the soft whispers of the wind through the grass. Lily would play nearby, often crawling into Nate's lap for comfort or laughter, while John sipped tea and reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. One evening, as the sky turned soft shades of pink and gold, John noticed something that made his chest tighten with emotion. Nate was gently rocking Lily, singing a soft melody that seemed to make the baby relax completely. Lily's small hand rested on Nate's arm, and the two shared a quiet, comforting connection. John realized in that moment that Nate had not only become a caregiver but had become a true part of their family. He walked over to them quietly, sitting down beside Nate without disturbing their moment. "I don't think I've said this enough," John said softly, "but thank you for everything, for Lily, for the ranch, for being here. I am here because I want to be John. I came to help and now I am part of this family. That is enough for me." He had found all of that in Nate and more. Over the following weeks, the bond between them strengthened further. They worked together seamlessly, laughed together, and shared the simple joys of everyday life. John realized that he had grown to rely on nature's presence not only for practical help, but also for emotional support. She had become a steady force in his life, a reminder that even in the most difficult times, kindness and care could arrive unexpectedly. Lily continued to thrive under their combined guidance. She learned small skills, played safely with the animals, and explored the ranch with curiosity. John noticed that she was growing more confident and independent, yet she still turned to Nate for comfort and guidance. It was clear that Nate had earned not only his trust but Lily's love as well. One day, as John and Nate were repairing a section of fence together, Lily toddled over carrying a small bundle of wildflowers. She handed them to Nate with a proud smile, her eyes shining with joy. Nate accepted the flowers, holding them gently and praising Lily for her thoughtfulness. John watched quietly, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. This simple moment, a child giving flowers to someone who had cared for her, symbolized the bond that had formed between them, a bond built on trust, love, and shared experiences. As the weeks turned into months, John noticed subtle changes in himself as well. He was no longer weighed down by constant worry or exhaustion. He found joy in the small moments, watching Lily laugh, seeing the fields thrive, or enjoying quiet evenings on the porch. Life, which had once felt heavy and lonely, now felt full and meaningful. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky with soft colors, John sat with Nate and Lily on the porch. The baby was dozing in Nate's lap, a small smile on her face, while John sipped a warm drink and looked out over the land. The ranch, once a place of hard work and solitude, now felt alive with love, care, and hope. "You've changed everything, Nate," John said quietly, his voice filled with gratitude. Nate smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair from Lily's face. "We changed everything together," she replied. "It is not just me, it is all of us as a family." But now, looking at Nate and Lily, he realized that life had a way of bringing the right people into your life at the right time. Nate had arrived when they needed her most, and her presence had transformed their home, their hearts, and their future. As the sky grew darker and the first stars appeared, John felt a sense of peace he had never known before. He looked at Lily, asleep in Nate's arms, and felt a deep sense of gratitude. He knew that with Nate by their side, they could face any challenge together. The ranch, the work, and the hardships of life no longer seemed overwhelming because they now had each other. In that quiet moment, John realized that life had come full circle. From the loneliness and worry of the past months, they had grown into a family united by trust, care, and love. Nate had not only helped him with practical matters but had restored hope, laughter, and warmth to their home. And as he watched the stars appear in the night sky, John whispered softly to himself, "Now we are truly a family." "Yes, we are," she said. The three of them sat together on the porch, watching the moon rise over the plains. The wind moved gently through the grass, carrying the scents of the earth and the quiet sounds of nature. John felt a deep sense of gratitude, knowing that the search was finally over. They had found what they needed, not just help or guidance, but love, trust, and a family to share life with. In the months that followed, life continued with its daily routines and small adventures. There were challenges, as there always are on a ranch, but the weight of those challenges was shared. John, Nate, and Lily faced them together, building memories, learning from one another, and growing closer every day. The ranch, once a symbol of hard work and isolation, had become a place of love, laughter, and connection. And through it all, the simple truth remained. They were no longer three separate people struggling alone. They were a family, bound together by care, trust, and the shared joys and responsibilities of life. Nate had arrived when they needed her most, and in doing so, she had changed their lives forever. As the night settled over the ranch, John held a small hand in his own, feeling the warmth and love that had returned to their home. Lily slept peacefully in Nate's arms, the soft rise and fall of her breathing a reminder of the safety and care she now knew. John smiled, finally able to relax, knowing that they had found something rare and precious, a family complete, happy, and united. The story of struggle, hope, and new beginnings had reached its heartwarming conclusion. Through patience, trust, and kindness, John, Lily, and Nate had built a life together that promised love, stability, and joy for all the days to come.